these are a few of the companies I've worked with. I've been blessed, and it's been great. Every company I work with is you learn something to pass on to the next company, and I've got 30 years of experience in my head on this topic. I love it dearly. It reflects who I am. I'm a very positive and practical person, and all my books have real life examples. Um, they're not academic, a Midwestern manufacturing plant. I name the companies. Often I name people and have quotes from the results they got or why they did the changes. So I would encourage you to check those out. In general, today's employees they report they're working harder, but they feel less valued. Yes. So 85% say they're overworked and underappreciated. 40% say their job is very or extremely stressful. 25% say it's the number one stressor in their life, which of course flows over in the rest of their life, their family, and the average employee spends 15% of their time at home complaining about their boss. Yeah, we've got to change that, and this topic can change that. If you've got cynicism, negativity, and politicking, and all that in your organization, you can snuff it out by overwhelming it with a positive influence that comes from this topic. Not a few things are done from corporate, not just a program, uh, but taking the topic into the integration of each of your leaders and making the case that it's no longer optional to recognize employees. If we go back, 15 years ago, and I've surveyed people, and then about the topic, the comments I would get would be, yeah, yeah, it would be nice if my boss said something every now and then. That would be great. It doesn't happen, but it would be great. And now overwhelmingly, employees expect to be recognized when they do a good job. And if you don't provide that, then you got a chink in the armor, and they've started to have a foot out the door, looking around at a better place to work. 60% of today's employees feel pressured to work too much. 56 say they're somewhat or completely dissatisfied with their job. And, you get dissatisfied enough and time to move on. 54% plan to find new jobs as the economy further improves. The economy is red hot right now. We have an extreme shortage of skilled labor in our country, which means and the lowest unemployment rate in decades. It means two things. Whoever needs a job, there's a job out there for you. But secondly, you've got to value your people, or they will leave. And this includes 25% of top performers, according to the Harvard Business Review, are looking to move on. Often they have the greatest ability to take their bundle of skills somewhere else, and the younger employees, 76% of younger employers saying that they're planning to change jobs going forward in the next few years. And those are some powerful stats that says, we got to take this whole topic more seriously, and shed the historically things that we've always done. Topic I'm going to come back to. This has led to, and not starting now, this has been, I've been on this topic. I did my dissertation on this topic, asking just why do some managers use this recognition, others don't? We know it works. We got 400 studies that say you get what you reward. What you notice will be repeated. What you inspect will be focused on. You get what you recognize, you get what you reward. So that's well established, going back to 1914 and B.F. Skinner, the power of positive consequences. But it's come to the forefront now, where organizations, because of the stress, because of the speed, because of the shortage of employees, of skilled labor, you've we've got to take this more seriously to build it into your operation. And no matter if you're a small company or a large company, whether it's just your department or whatever, start with where you are and start moving to a more inclusive culture of recognition. Recognition, very simply, is acknowledging and appreciating people for their achievements. Okay, it's not just being nice, it's based on performance. And that's why it's such the biggest driver of performance is because when you notice performance, it gets repeated, guaranteed. And so this is why it needs to be systematically done in your organization, ideally by every manager in your organization. So you've got to take the message to them that this is no longer optional. And by the way, it's not that hard to do. And by the way, the top motivators don't cost any money. And by the way, we're going to help you. you know, you're not on your own. We're here to help you, and we're going to talk about this, but we're going to set the bar a little higher. That if you're managing for us in this organization, we have expectations for how you handle the people that report to you. It's not whatever you feel like doing. It's that's old school, and we've got a lot of that still out there. It's this is what we expect. I worked with Disney, for example, for 15 years. They're part of my doctoral work, and the idea that someone would come in and just start, taking names and kicking butt, that is not going to happen at Disney, because this is too, they've realized, in fact, the whole foundation of Disney rests on this topic of acknowledging performance success, acknowledging customer service, acknowledging teamwork. And at Walt Disney World, they've got over 200 different ways to do that. Now, a lot of people say, well, God, sounds like overkill. They don't think so, because this is the biggest driver of performance, and the entire empire that they have is built on this. Going back to the epiphany by Walt Disney back in 1954, that he said he realized that you can't yell at people in the back room, expect them to come out and act like nothing's wrong when they're dealing with the customer. We can't, no one can disconnect like that. He said, if I ever have a chance to have people work for me, I will treat them as though they're my customer, knowing that if I do that well, they will naturally pass it on to the company's customer. And so it has happened. And so they have done that. And yes, it's fun and exciting to work at Disney. I've met people that have moved to Orlando. They don't care what the job is. They have to work for this organization, and they get in and they take their career wherever they want to. But it's very powerful. Although most all employees want recognition, from my research, almost universal 99.4% expect to be recognized when they do good work. Expect. Again, that word wasn't in this equation. If we go back 10, 15 years, people would say, hey, it'd be nice if my boss did something. Now I expect it. Younger generation expects it. And it can be maddening to a baby boomer. I told you last week you're doing a good job. Yeah, that was last week. How about this project? Okay. It can drive you nuts, unless you realize it doesn't have to all fall on you, because you can set up their peers to recognize them as well. You can tie in upper management and make them and help show them, and in the process make them look good in doing this, so they'll want to do it again. All performance is driven by positive consequences, and we need to shy away from the negative consequences, which don't drive behavior. They drive people hiding and not seeing you, and hiding their mistakes. We need a positive focus, gets people out, open, helping each other, being excited about what they're doing, looking to do an even better job tomorrow. So almost everyone needs this. And once 80% of managers say they feel they're pretty good at this topic. All right. They read the 1 Minute Manager. They know it's important to be positive. Wonderful. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that this doesn't filter to the employees. So a lot of managers can have what I call the knowing doing gap. In their head, they know it's important to how they treat their people, but it doesn't transform to their actions, their behaviors. And so people don't feel valued. And in fact, only about 12% today say they get recognized where they work for the job they're hired to do. And a lot of managers, hopefully less now, but it used to be standard to say, I'm not going to recognize someone for doing the work I'm paying them to do. That's why they get paid. Come on, grow up. In a tight labor market that we're in, that's a luxury. If you don't value people, you will lose them. So only 12% say they're getting it now, and 34% say the stuff that we do in our company doesn't speak to me. The years of service, or the holiday party. And actually, I missed that because I was meeting with a client out of the office. So the celebration that was supposed to make me feel valued, I couldn't even attend because I was working, or I'm remote, So we gotta get clear on stopping the old ways of employee of the month, and I'm not sure how well that stuff worked to begin with, but I definitely know it doesn't work today. You got to clear out the cobwebs and start, if need be, start over and ask your people how, if they do good work, what would they like, how would they like to be recognized? Now, I know a lot of you might be afraid to do that because you say they're going to ask for more money, and they might. And especially if they're low paid, or especially if their job is, they go, it's easy to go online now and see what jobs are worth, and what other companies pay someone with my skills. It doesn't take 5-10 minutes of investigation, and people can get an assessment, if not by just talking to people around them in your company. But asking them, yes, I'm not talking about compensation. Compensation is what you're paid to do your job. So we're not going to give you more money when you do a great job. Maybe if that's part of your comp plan or your bonus, yeah, we'll do that. But regardless of what you're paid in this organization, we want everyone to feel valued. Is that so hard to sell? We want everyone to feel valued. We want to feel individually. We want you have you feel good about working with your team and being a part of our organization and walking the talk of our core values. And man, if you tap into that, you're tapping into unlimited potential, and you're tapping into people that will stay with you. The research shows for their career. If you create a culture where they feel valued, they'll be 5 times more likely to feel valued. If you do these things, they'll be 6 times more likely to have agency to brag to others, friends, neighbors, associates, about the great place they work, and 7 times more likely to stay with your company, 11 times more likely to be more committed to their job, to the manager, and to the mission of your organization. Huge, huge payoffs for a topic that at the heart of it is behavioral. Does not have a it can have a cost, but doesn't have to have a cost. So the business case for this topic is, this is straight from my doctoral dissertation, which, by the way, if anyone was interested, I'd be glad to send you the thing, online. It was a 3-year study. It took me a year just to set it up. I looked at the topic and had like 67 national companies. I looked at managers that were good at recognition and ones that were not. And I had a 3-way validation, organizational sponsor, manager self-report, and up to 16 of their direct reports. Is this person a doer of recognition or not? And I got them in these 2 camps. And then I used some powerful statistics to say what differentiates these 2 groups, holding a lot of things constant. Position, education, size of company, et cetera, et cetera. What differentiates between these two types of people. And it was powerful. And actually, just real quickly, the top reason why managers don't use recognition is they don't know how to do it well. So it's a training thing. It's a showing them. It wasn't part of their upbringing, or they didn't have a mentor that talked to them about the importance of taking care of your people. So you know, if need be, you got to start there. Um, they often didn't feel it was as important as I'm saying it is. I know it is. And then third, they didn't have time, and who has time to do things we don't think are that important to begin with, right? So you got to catch 22 there. They're afraid of leaving out someone. They're afraid and by the way, no one's recognizing them. So when I start getting some, I'll start giving some, et cetera, et cetera. And those are all kind of, you know, a whole laundry list of kind of excuses, honestly. And because when I looked at the people that did use recognition, there wasn't a list. There was just one reason why they did it. It works. It drives performance. It builds cohesion. It helps us get the job done. It makes my life so I'm not spending every day looking for new talent to replace the people that are leaving. We don't have a revolving door here. People stay because they love what they're doing. They love how they're treated, and they love working with the rest of the team. So on top of the list of all this, though, this is not just a feel-good, fuzzy, blue smoke and mirrors HR thing. You know, you got to crack the code on that and say this is the number one driver of performance. Are we interested in more performance and more competitive advantage in our organization? This is the ticket to get there. Number one. Not just me saying that. In my research in the Harvard Business Review, research by Aberdeen on the number one driver of engaged workplaces is a systematic strategy for recognizing the employee population. So it drives performance, number one. In my research, this is from my study, 73% of managers said they get expected results when they used it. 73%. It helps to increase productivity, 78%, 80%. It makes getting the work done easier. Helps increase performance. 84% of managers said this. 90% said it helps motivate people better. How much proof do you need to light a fire to make this real? Well, this give you a little bit more then. And I mentioned this already. This is from Merits Inc., by the way. And then from Towers Watson, they found that committed employees deliver 57% more effort than uncommitted ones. That's like saying for every dollar you pay someone, you get $1.57 return in their effort and commitment. It works. And you can make that case for your own company. You can look at the impact on this on something like turnover, which is, I mentioned Disney in the Central Florida corridor. The turnover rate for employees in the hospitality industry is 159% a year. That's almost, that's over 1.5 times turnover for every single position. You know what Disney's turnover is? 11%. Why? This stuff works. There's a direct financial link between engaged, satisfied employees, increased customer satisfaction, and bottom line profit. A study in Harvard Business Review looked at Sears, for example, and systematically made this case. Actually, even we're able to quantify the value per se. So this is a strategic imperative that you've got to take seriously here. The organizational, the cultural, the financial benefits of a positive employee recognition, which leads to is the biggest number one driver of employee engagement. And these are just I showed some other companies before. These are a few companies that I feel have got it right, that do the right things, and I've been blessed to work with each of them. So let's kind of cut to the chase here. Michael and I went through this program, and we cut out about 80% of my slides because one, we got 120 questions, and there are a lot of good questions, and we want to deal with those. And I'd hit on a lot of that in my content, but then I'm kind of long-winded, and so we want to make sure we leave time for that. But let me just cut to the chase and say, this is what companies have historically done and what needs to change. And if any of these things make you feel guilty, this is opportunity to day one to move forward, to start creating a different reality. Years of service. 92% of companies have years of service awards. Wow, going all the way back to Ford Motor in 1920, who started giving out actually grandfather clocks for years of service awards, and now spends $20 million a year, years of service awards, shoveling stuff at people because they've been here a certain amount of time. It shouldn't You shouldn't reward people just for how long they've been with you. You should recognize that. You want to reward them financially, compensation for the job they do, but you want to recognize them, which means it doesn't have to spend a lot of money, if any money, for how long they've been here, 5, 10, 15 years. So you start slopping money into there, and all of a sudden it will become viewed as compensation. So you do a $5,000 bonus for an employee, for end of the year, and next year you do the same thing. Third year, they already got it spent before you give it to them. Money becomes viewed as compensation, which is what you owe me for the work I did. This is not the topic we're talking about here. We're talking about what to do for everyone, regardless of what they're paid. And if you can have on the spot awards and some nominal things, but if it's too rich with the money, you're going to negate the whole topic of and the value of recognition. It's going to be someone and a lot of time in a lot of cultures, I got to tell you, people, the way we end up training people, that recognition in our culture is money. So you're in the hall, you just did the presentation, and you go back to your office and you talk to a colleague and say, hey, my boss said great job on that presentation I just did in the hallway. And your colleague goes, did he give you a spot bonus? No, it was a comment in the hallway. What are you talking about? Well, it must not have been that good then. You can train people that money is recognition in our culture, and then good luck for you for being able to get out of that out from under that stone, because people will no matter how much you pay them, I need a little bit more. You can't be too rich or too thin, right? But so years of service, and you can't have a years of service program that works well. Most of them don't. Most of them are kind of dead on arrival. You announce it, and there's a little buzz, and you give it to the first person, and all right, Sally got it. She deserves it. Everyone, and then what happens? It's or I'm sorry, referring to birthdays, holiday parties, summer picnics, retirement parties. Employee of the month is what I was starting to talk about. You can do something for employees, when they've done above and beyond. All right, and you do it once, and wow, great! Person loves it. Everyone loves it. And then what happens? Well, whether it's I don't know if it's 3 months or 3 years, but you'll get to a point where there's a bunch of people sitting around a conference room table, and they said, "Hey, we gotta pick the employee of the month for this month." We just did that. Yeah, 30 days ago. It's a new month. Oh my gosh, we've got such a full agenda. How about Jerry in the shipping department? Does he deserve it? Who cares? We're gonna be here all day. Come on. So we give it to Jerry, and what does he say? I knew if I hung around here long enough, someone would notice me. The whole thing's a joke. Okay. And by the way, why do we just have one employer of the month? Why would you put a limit on a quota on performance? We don't need employees of the month. We need employees of the moment. We need them every day. every day. Okay, that's where this operation has to go. So now I'm saying you could make your employee of the month if you're going to use that value that at Kentucky Fried Chicken, part of Yum Brand. Say they have an employee of the month, and to get on it, they've got an objective criteria. If you're recognized by another colleague or a manager for each for one of the core values, for each of the core values. They got 5, teamwork, service, that type of thing. And if you're recognized by all 5 values, you're an employee of the month. Sometimes they have 1, sometimes they have a dozen. Some months they don't have any. They're okay with that, because if you start doing this stuff just because for showing up, it's not going to work. It's got to be based on performance. So likewise, all these are like that. Birthdays. We celebrate people's birthdays. Guess what? A lot of people don't like to have their birthdays celebrated publicly. I'm one of them. I like doing something with my family, very private. I don't, I, I don't have my birthday on LinkedIn. I don't need to hear from a couple hundred people wishing me a happy birthday. Come on, now if that's important to you, go ahead, tell everyone when your birthday is. Drop some hints of what you like. Holiday parties. So many companies they say, well, we do a great holiday party. Holiday party. All these things are based on presence, not performance. If you want to drive a culture of performance, if you want to get away from being a culture of entitlements, this is the ticket. Okay, and it comes from focusing on performance in all its shapes and capacities, starting with each individual manager in their realm, noticing, catching people doing things right. So how do we need to change this going forward? And just a few, and then we're cutting this short so that we can take some questions, baby. And I'll send you, and then slides I send you, I'll include all the other stuff I had, so you got that as well. And by the way, part of this whole thing, and I don't know, I think we had close to 600 people sign up. I'm willing to meet with, and I'm gonna come back to you and say, hey, do you want to get together for 20, 30 minutes and talk about your issues on this topic and your questions that maybe we didn't answer? And we're gonna send out, I'm gonna send out answers to the questions as well. But this is what I do. This is what I love doing. I love helping companies get into the game and showing them how to make this happen. So we need to realign your focus on this topic. We need to move from presence to performance. This in itself will turn the tide in your organization, from presence and just showing up. So everyone gets a turkey at Thanksgiving, except for the people that weren't here because they were traveling or out with the client. they they get the smaller turkeys after they're picked over. True story, by the way. To performance, strategic objectives, ideally, but core values, absolutely. And in our department, in our team, what are we doing to acknowledge people? And by the way, I'm not going to focus on remote and virtual. I did a webinar yesterday where I focused a lot on that, and I'll be glad to send you that deck as well with the ideas I specifically gave on virtual and remote recognition. But let me just say that I lost that train of thought. Ooh, okay. um, we've got to focus on the performance that makes the biggest difference. Now, secondly, for everyone does something on this, and even if you don't have a formal program, people are doing it in their department and whatnot. So it's kind of random and disjointed. You have to move to a consistency and a consolidation. You've got to have an umbrella that with criteria that every program and activity within it ties back to that. Again, at Disney, they have a lot of different types of recognition, but all falls under, here's why we're doing this. Here's our philosophy. You might even have a philosophy statement on why we're harnessing the power of this topic to make us a better, more competitive organization. You want to move from it being an administrative burden, which, boy, I just my heart goes out when I talk to some people that coordinate this, and they're doing stuff by hand and they're running spreadsheets and trying to remember, organizing the luncheon for the employees, the years of service party. You know, it's like, ay, yeah, 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 yeah. So much of this in the last decade has changed through the power of technology and leveraging that technology, whether it's an app which taps into the thing that's on everybody's phone, which is instant access, which is, again, wow, if you could start using your phone for recognition, now guess what? Even if your people don't have computers, if you're a restaurant, and even if they're, if they don't have access, they don't have a workstation because they're in the warehouse all the time. We all have phones. And there's a lot of recognition apps that can allow you to do this on the phone, and then in the process make it timely. The best recognition is timely, it's sincere, it's specific, it's proactive. So harnessing the power of technology. We'll come back to that. And you know, again, uh, for a lot of places, they just do random stuff. Hey, we got movie tickets, and they're in HR. If anyone wants them, go get some. And then, whoever gets there fast gets them. And the people that are out, on a project or doing something else, they don't get them. And, again, we're reinforcing presence, showing up, and not what was actually done. And sorry about that for those people, the remote people. They didn't have the chance anyway. uh, so if I learned from Peter Drucker, my professor, my PhD, that if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, whatever it is. So if you're randomly buying Starbucks cards and passing them out like candy because you feel guilty because you yelled at someone yesterday, good luck. You gotta move away from that to have a form of systematic measuring, so you can tell who's doing it and who's not, providing a coaching opportunity, and you can systematically get better and better and better, and you can move from the burden just on a manager. The most important person for anyone in their work is who they report to move it to their peers, so they can recognize each other, to again find ways to loop in upper management and involve them in this. And we got a number of questions on that topic, so let me just say that like uh, there's a lot of strategies for selling this topic to your CEO, to upper management. And for example, when I worked with Michael at Qualcomm, and we took it really seriously, 46,000 employees, and how can we get the organization to take this seriously? We got to lead with our executive team. And so one of the things I did is I got they knew who was good at this, 4 or 5 senior executives. And I said, let's get them on a stage and let me interview them. And we invited all other executives to attend, about 300. And all I did was play as devil advocate. I heard here, person, the head of 5G cell phone technology. I hear that you do spontaneous forms of thanks for people, and at the end of deliverables, you debrief and call out people and do some celebration. You can't possibly have time to do that with all the work you got. No, 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 no. That is, we can't do it without that. The celebrations, for performance, the acknowledging each other, that's what drives the whole thing. That's why we're not spending all our time just hiring, because we got a strong team, and that's why we can do unprecedented things in our company for our industry and create the future of technology. And you start as executives to hear that from other well-respected, high performance executives. All of a sudden, it sends a message, I got to be doing this. And by the way, since we're going to track this, we're going to know who's going to do it and who's not going to do it, and who's in the game and who's not. Just one other quick story. I worked for Bank of America, 210,000 employees when I was with them, and on this topic, and we had from the get-go, I remember commercial lending. They openly scoffed at the whole thing. The things they come up with HR, like we don't have anything to do, openly laughed at the whole thing. They stopped laughing, however, because one of the things that we built into the rollout in the program was a public reporting. So at the managers, the all hands leadership meeting that was held monthly, we had reporting of by percentage of business line and departments who were best at this topic. And the first time that was done, commercial lending ranked on the bottom. And the senior VP of that division stormed out of the room and he said, "We will never, ever be listed last on anything that is posted in front of the leadership of this organization." And he went from being scoffing at it to being our biggest advocate. And we knew that we had turned the curve when like 4 months later, he called us he wanted the early report on the numbers because they'd been working on it and they'd gotten a lot better. And he was excited to find out how much better and to see their name up there higher on the list, if not the highest.
But let's organize some of the questions and contextualize this, your experience, and as well as recommendations for people out there who are very interested in how to bring these ideas to life. I think the first thing I want to probe, perhaps it's a comment, perhaps it's a question and related, is what really is recognition? The words recognition, of course, harken back for old times or a different time when that might be formalized or structured and it was a thing, and that this was what recognition is. When you juxtapose the impact of technology, phones, devices, and everybody's, and we parallel from the old school when we used to all be in the same workplace and we'd all have long extended careers, that was different to now. What is recognition? That way people might feel a little bit more fluid in the principles of what you're sharing. Let's start with what is recognition and what is not recognition.
Well, in a nutshell, recognition is noticing performance by individuals, by teams, by the organization, and calling attention to it and celebrating it as needed. So it's there's some confusion with that and appreciation, and you had a previous speaker that wrote 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, and the top one was personal, which I agree with. But the point being that everyone, the people that work for your organization should all be respected just for the fact that they're human, and we're gonna be considerate in dealing with them. Recognition is when they've done something. It could be above and beyond, or it could be a core value. It could be they've made the goal. Ideally, if you have people aiming at strategic objectives, when they have movement towards those or achieve them, those are the moments to recognize. They happen thousands of times every day, and I'm advocating capturing and more of those opportunities, the moments of recognition, and not saying we're just going to do it at the end of the year, end of the month. It's got to be a daily thing.
Right. So and appreciate that. I think people should feel a little bit freer in terms of interpreting and deploying this in their workplaces as conveying to people that they matter and that the things they do count. And generationally,
yes, exactly.
Because people have got 5 generations in their current workplaces, it's not going to be the same. There is no one size fits all, and
very lumpy, very uneven.
Right, and don't be constrained by that, because
yes,
you're never going to solve all of it for everybody.
And you're going to create a trap for yourself, because you do this, you finish the project and you got coffee mugs with the project name for everyone, and you're feeling great about that, and you spent money and effort, and someone goes, we just saved the company $200,000 and we get a coffee mug. It becomes a big disconnect, and instead of going, and managers do this, those ingrates, I brought in pizza and they're complaining about this or that. Instead, you might take that as a lesson. What would have been better? And maybe talk to them and say, my intentions were good. What would have been more meaningful for you? And if they say money, say, money's part of compensation. We're not talking about money, but to thank you and to give you visibility and to acknowledge your success to others in our company. What along those lines would you like more of? And I had several of the questions. People said people don't say what they how they want to be recognized. So I'm not sure what to do. If I had someone like that working for me, I go, first I'd say, okay. And then I'd say, you know what? I need to recognize you because I'm proud of what you did. And other people need to hear about it. So even if you don't need it, I want to recognize you. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to do something that embarrasses you, or a lot of people don't like public recognition, for example. So I want to be on the mark. So I need to help me out here, will you? And you say, well, okay, I hear, what are you, and this is where the more you know about someone, the more fodder you have to motivate them. So a lot of companies, they start with a inventory of even when you start the job, like there's some hotels that do this. And they'll fill out your benefits. You fill a preference form, ways you like to be recognized, your favorite foods, your favorite flowers. Do you have any pets? What are your pets' names, et cetera, et cetera? What hobbies do you have? And then someone could give them a gift for their hobby, or do something thoughtful that's more meaningful for them personally. This actually an idea I got from actually a manager years ago. Said, Bob, we took your book and I took your book and I passed it around to my immediate team. Here's 1,501 ways to reward employees, and I just asked people to initial ideas in the column that you like. Doesn't mean you're gonna have to do any of them, but if you wanted to do something to catch that person for something they've done, you can go see what they said would be meaningful to them, and turn the book into your own personal motivation guide for your own team.
So first thing is, what is recognition, a way of expressing appreciation? Next big theme in the questions. We'll try and be as efficient as quick. Is money required? We'll just put it in that way. Having money is great.
No, money is not required. As I said, money's compensation. It confuses the issue. It could be a token spot award, or it could be a gift card that has some monetary value. But let me tell you, what's often more important is the sizzle with the steak. It's a context. Good recognition always has a context. This is what I saw what you did. I value it. Here's why what you did was so important. You nailed what we've been talking about, better teamwork, and here you just did it. And so it's an example that we all can learn from. Thank you. And the more whatever you call out will be done more by that individual and by other people that notice this is what gets noticed around here, and take it seriously. So that's how the touchiness, and then of course for any type of recognition you can always add on and build it. There's a multiplier effect, and that's very powerful as well.
Yeah, so adding to that, in the work we're doing, we're seeing the majority of the recognition or the posts or the messaging or the thank yous being one driven by the frontline employees working with each other and expressing appreciation, and they're non-monetary.
That's wonderful. That's where it's at. That's where now you're into the culture is defined as the things that we do. The way we behave, our practices, and so if you get it into your systems where people are recognizing each other, wow, now you're over the goal line. And then anything bonus. Of course, you can't leave out the manager because that's the most important person for any of us. But to hear a thanks from someone that you're working closely with or share an office with, a lot of times they know more what you're up to than your manager, because they're seeing the struggle and the calls and the challenges you have. So having them say, "Wow, you really hit that one out of the park," a lot of times has as much power, if not more, than the manager.
So on that manager question, and that's been a lot of the themes in the questions, how do you suggest people think about helping encourage the managers to participate and be active and get their, you know, their involvement, given that they have such an important role in the delivery of the recognition?
It's critical that this is led by line management. You can't make this happen from HR. It can't be. You don't want it to be an HR program. Okay, you want to have credibility that comes from those people that are driving the business, and that's why you got to get them on the team. You got to make the case to the CEO, to the executive team. This is real. It's not blue smoke and mirrors. It's not, and so there's overwhelming data. You have a ton of it. I have a ton of it. It comes out almost daily. On a 10-minute search on Google, you have more data and stats and the connection between and actually the recognition performance link. I've got a whole article just on that from my dissertation that I'd send anyone that wanted it. But you got to make the case, and it can't be something that managers do if they feel like it. You know, then it's not going to happen. And then you can have a lumpy organization, because if you work for a great manager, and it's only 1 out of every 4 or 5 managers any of us will have in our career that we feel are a great manager. If you happen to have one of those, you hold on to them and you think twice about leaving, because the next person probably be a jerk, you know. And so if you have a randomness and there isn't an accountability and managers do what they want, and you know, or they ask HR to do it for them, this has to come from leadership. So you got to camp on that one. You got to get an organizational sponsor from the executive team. The more you can drive this from the top, the more likely it's going to roll down the organization and be accomplished. So if you, and I know some of you have CEOs that, yeah, nah, we're not going to waste time on this, and then I just say, well, do it in your department, okay? Because it works. I remember years ago I was speaking to 900 people in Seattle, and someone I'd been there, you know, like 5 weeks earlier, and I saw someone in the first front row. I go, "You look familiar." He goes, "Yeah, I heard you speak 5 weeks ago. I had to come back and tell you what happened." I go, "Lay it on me," you know. And she said, I went back. I left the room saying, "This is happening. I'm not asking permission. I'm doing this with in my department." And the person was a manager of the finance department, and went back and I go, "Well, what'd you do?" And it was incredible. It was all over the map. It was great. Well, we started a happiness committee. It had 5 people on it. No one knew who they were, and any one of them could say, "It's time to do something." Like what? Well, we held a picnic up on the roof. Or we bartered meeting space with a company on the next block over that does limo rides. So they give us limo rides, and we let them meet in our meeting room, you know, once a month. Except all without a budget, you know. And she said, you know, within a couple months, other people started stopping me in the hallway and said, "What are you doing in your department? Your people are on fire." Yeah. Well, come to the next meeting. Let me show you. And it had this touchiness and this catchiness. Fast forward, you know, 18 months later, that company, Perkins Coie, a freaking law firm, entered the list of the best places to work in America, number 23. That I would suggest was from one person that lit the fuse in that organization and made it happen. She was recruited and helped other places. I wrote them up to give them external validation. This is, you know, you take it on and you move in that direction. Again, it's not one-time thing. It's you do it, you get better at it, you get more people involved, and at some point you take on the people that aren't doing it.
Love that story, Bob. So guys, we're out of time, unfortunately, at this point, and Bob has a lot more stories, and I know there were a lot of questions that people wanted to get to. We didn't even get to the end of the deck. As I mentioned, we're going to follow up with some materials, but I think I'm going to ask Bob if he'd like to do a separate session with the group on specific tactics of how you would take these principles and ideas and apply them, you know, in the workplace. But on behalf of everybody that attended,
actually, I would
On
love
behalf
that
of
because
everybody that attended, Bob, thank you very much for being here today with us. We've got to end it. People have got to drop off to their other jobs, and we'll be following up. And happy Appreciation Day, Bob. Thanks for starting it all off for
thank you,
everybody.
and thank
with
everyone.
appreciation.
Make it a great day.